Welcome, one and all, to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you're having a great start to your week. Of course, it's hard to believe it's already the end of May. We're basically 1/3 of the way through the baseball season. Memorial Day is right around the corner. And the Braves are once again playing some head-scratching baseball. To all who are listening, who enjoyed the weekend in Boston, it was a lot of fun. We were looking forward to Spencer Strider returning, Ronald Acuña Jr. being right around the corner. The offense got 3 runs in the first inning and then nothing. That's been the story of the 2025 Atlanta Braves, and no one can tell it better than my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert. Stephen, good being with you. It feels like that we've done a lot of wins, a lot of podcasts after wins here recently. It's unfortunate that tonight, we kind of see the momentum from the weekend stop with the loss to the Nationals.
Yeah, what's up, buddy? It was an exciting day because we knew Spencer was coming back, Spencer Strider, and we're obviously going to talk about him in length here. This is going to be probably the main topic of the show. It was his first start back since the hamstring injury, only his second start back since the major elbow injury from last year, and he looked rusty. That's perfectly fair. He did not look sharp. He had some interesting comments after the game that we'll get to, but yeah, just kind of another. The Braves are just a weird team right now. I don't think at any single point, maybe one time this year in that little stretch when they swept the Twins and beat the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks. But other than that, there really doesn't seem to be a point at any time in this season where they've had every aspect of the team going at one time. And, in Boston, the offense really picked up, but the run prevention, kind of went by the wayside, and they had to win some high scoring games. Tonight, it looked like the offense was going to pick up right where they left off, leaving Boston, and they scored 3 runs in the second inning after Washington had scored 3 runs in the first. The Braves came back, immediately covered it up, got 3 in the second, and then they did not get a runner to second base the rest of the game. They got 2 singles, one from Nick Allen and one from Stuart Fairchild the rest of the night, and that was it. Didn't even really come close to scoring again against an average pitcher and a not great bullpen, one of the worst bullpens in baseball, actually. So, it's just another, where did this come from? The offense was just clicking on all cylinders in Boston. You're like, all right, here we go. The guys are really starting to pick it up again. And even after that second inning, look, here we go again. 4 extra base hits in 1 inning. And then nothing for the rest of the game for 7 innings against some not great pitching. So, yeah, just frustrating, annoying. This offense is going to be the bane of my existence until we can get some consistency. I know we got a guy coming back that should help with that. But, yeah, Strider is the big story. But I think the main takeaway from this game is the offense continues to ride this roller coaster.
Absolutely. And, the ups and downs of that roller coaster just seem to – all it seems to be. There's very little straight line of expectations. But we'll get into the offense in just a moment. Let's talk a bit about Spencer Strider. Of course, everybody excited as can be, as they should be. When Spencer Strider's on the mound, you feel confident the Braves more often than not are going to get the job done. But Strider tonight overall definitely looked rusty. He looked like a pitcher that had not pitched at the major league level for nearly a year, at least only once over the past year plus. 4.1 innings pitched, 6 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, gave up a homer, didn't seem to have his usual velocity, didn't seem to have his usual control. He just seemed to be working through it. And again, that should very much be expected when it comes to how, the fact that, again, he's only made 1 start over the past year plus. But the first thing that stands out to me about this, Stephen, is what me and you talked about multiple times over the offseason and even coming into this season. Again, this team is better with Spencer Strider than without Spencer Strider. But the Spencer Strider that we all know and love, it would have been hard. There was a very realistic possibility we weren't going to get that level of Spencer Strider once he returned. And we may not get it this season. I think that was the big reminder. That was the big takeaway from tonight. It's going to take time for Spencer Strider to truly be himself. No doubt in my mind he's going to get back to being himself, but it's going to take time. And unfortunately for this Braves team, They need him back to be in the normal Spencer Strider as soon as possible. But again, it may just not be realistic that it's going to happen here over the next even 1 or 2 starts.
Yeah, it was a weird game. Spencer definitely got bad-bipped a little bit in the first inning. There were some ground balls, even in the first few innings. There were some ground balls that on a different day could have easily just been outs. He did give up some hard contact, though. Obviously, gave up the homer, gave up a double. And so, he certainly wasn't sharp. The command, he was behind in the count a lot. I think the homer he gave up to Dylan Cruz, he got behind 3-0, threw a fastball, and he hit it out for a homer. There was a couple of those, I think only had 3 strikeouts in 75 pitches, 4 innings. So obviously you're going to, at some point, we're going to probably see a better version than that. But it is fair. Like, we do not know what he's going to look like post-surgery. We don't. Like, we have hopes. And there are plenty of examples of guys coming back, from his surgery and being just as good, if not better. So, like, there's reason for optimism, and he says he feels good. The velocity certainly wasn't what it was before the surgery. Obviously, when he was throwing 98, 99, 100. Tonight was much more 95, 96. And then by the end of the game, it was more like 93, 94. But some of that could just be conditioning. So we're not going to spend too much time on velocity after one start. That's pointless, because you kind of have to think about it like the beginning of spring training, where guys come in all the time throwing a couple miles an hour lower than normal, and then they slowly build up to it. So, that's not, I know a lot of people were freaking out online about the velocity. I'm not there yet. I'm going to let him build up. The command stuff is just rust. He's never really, I don't really worry about his command overall. That's just going to be getting reps in. But I'll tell you what I love about Spencer Strider is after the game, the reporters asked him, and they were, Spencer was pretty down on himself. And so I think the reporters were trying to get like a positive answer out of him, kind of a bright side answer. And so they asked him, even though it was a frustrating night, is it nice just to be back out there, pitching every 5th day? And most guys would give you an answer like, yeah, it's great. It's great to be back out there. I love pitching with my teammates. I love being out here. What I love about Spencer is that Spencer does not suffer any of that stuff. He does not give you boilerplate ever. And Spencer's answer was, no, it's not great at all. The point is to win, and I'm not helping us win. And they sent down a guy who was pitching pretty well so that I could pitch tonight. And if I'm not going to pitch better than this, then I don't deserve to be out there. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear. Like, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear a guy like, no, I'm not out here just to be out here. I'm not out here just to go through the motions. I'm trying to win. I've made 2 starts this year and I've contributed to 2 losses. Like I'm that's not good enough. Like and there was another question about like, over time, do you think it'll get better? And he was like, well, it's not just going to get better magically. Like, I have to put in the work. Like, it's not just something that's just going to happen. I have to make adjustments. I have to put in the work. Those are just answers that I love, because it's so different than what you usually hear. I guarantee you it was a different answer than when the reporters were expecting. But that is Spencer, tried and true. And so that's why I have a ton of confidence in him going forward. I think he knows, he's got to be better. He clearly knows, and he's clearly pissed. And he's a highly, highly ultra competitive dude. And it was not a great first start. The offense we'll get to in a minute, maybe even more frustrating than Spencer, but not a great first start. But it is good to get the first one. I know he had that one in Toronto, but in the last month, his first one in the last month, good to get that one done with. Maybe try to build off of, get the command better, see if the velocity ticks up a bit. I'm not worried. Worried is not the right word, but it is something to monitor, because we don't know. We don't know what Spencer's going to be this year.
But it does give you confidence in the fact that the best way to put it is that Spencer Strider expects excellence. And it's not in an arrogant way. It's in a way that he knows that he's talented. But he also knows that what allows for him to be even better than just being considered talented is he knows the hard work that it takes to maximize his talent. And when he's willing to put in the hard work, as he alluded to, he demands that he's going to get top of the line results. So that right there, listen, if it doesn't work out for you, knowing exactly what you need to do in order to get back to the point to where you are satisfied. And again, I know that he may never be satisfied, but at the end of the day, you have to, I would put good money on Spencer Strider being the Spencer Strider that we all know and love. It may not be in May, it may not be in June, but I would imagine at some point we do see it. And then as we move along, it'll be more consistent moving forward. But we will get to the offense. When we're talking about consistency, that certainly is something this offense is lacking. And it once again reared its ugly head in Washington on Monday. A word from our partners real quick, and we'll be right back with the Hammer Territory podcast.
Kratz, I'm going to let everyone in on a little secret. I am not a fan of carrying around physical cash. I go Cash App, where you can send, receive, or transfer money with family and friends. It's super easy. They've got your back too. Like if you're trying to send some money and you maybe put in the wrong account name, they'll be like, hey, this is a sketchy account. Are you sure you want to send this? Cash App has your back. They do it safe, securely, easily, and fee-free.
And all you got to do is download the app, and Scott can actually pay for his half of dinner.
Exactly. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch. Download Cash App, sign up. It's very easy, and use our exclusive referral code Territory in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App.
So, Stephen, welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. Stephen, let's talk a bit about the season as a whole moving forward. We're coming up on game 50 when it comes to this team. Again, basically, a little bit, before a third of the way through the season. And we want to talk about what the true identity of this team is. Well, the truth is this team has not found its true identity. It's a team that right now is surviving because overall its pitching has done very well, but with the offensive talent that it has, you would expect for that to at some point reveal itself as the true strength of this team, and it just has not yet. The thing that stands out to me, though, is that when you look at this season, the Braves started off 0-7. Okay. And so they built their way back up to being 500 where they currently are now. And everybody looks at that and they're thinking, okay, that's great. I've seen it a couple of times on social media. Since April 18th, the Braves have the best record in baseball. Well, that may be true, but I don't think that it's the best way to describe the season. They started off 0-7. And in the middle of April, against teams that they should have beat, some of those teams have, like the Cardinals and the Twins, have taken off since then. But at that time, they were among the worst teams in baseball. Though in the middle of April, the Braves backed up that 0-7 start with a 9 out of 11 stretch of winning. But then since April 29th, since they scored 8 runs, 2 games in a row in Colorado, but then lost 2-1 in sales start in Colorado, they're only 2 games above 500. It goes back to what we're talking about. The fact that this team, when you look at it, not being able to hit on all cylinders really at any time so far this season, they're the definition of a 500 team. Not being able to score above 5 runs, not being able to win more than 4 games in a row. They just don't have the characteristics right now of being the winner that they need to be in order to truly break out of their slow start and get truly back into that playoff picture.
Yeah, I've seen that too, where the Braves are the hottest team in baseball since April 18th. And it is a bit deceiving because they got red hot at the end of April. They swept the Twins. They took 2 out of 3 from the Cardinals. They took 2 out of 3 from the Diamondbacks, and they took 2 out of 3 from the Rockies. But basically since then, if you remember, they went into that third game in Colorado with a chance to get back to 500 with Chris Sale on the mound. So they were 1 game under 500 after that win in that second game in Colorado. And as we sit here today, almost 3 weeks later, they're still at 500. So they have played over the last 3 weeks. They've basically played 500 ball. Or 1 game over technically. And so when you say they're the hottest team in baseball since April 18th, you're kind of doing some creative, arbitrary endpoints is basically what you're doing. The truth is since basically the start of May, they've been a 500 team. And if you watch them, they just can't get the entire team moving in the same direction at once. It's like, at any point, and the offense is the main culprit. Listen, that's 100% fair, is the offense is the main culprit. There was a little stretch there in the middle where the pitching was shaky a little bit, but all in all, the offense has been the reason the Braves have lost games. Tonight it's probably a little of both. They gave up 5 runs. You're not really supposed to win when you give up 5 runs. So you can say tonight was on the pitching, but the offense did nothing after the second inning. And it's just very hard to go on any sort of substantial winning streak. I think you had a stat. Once you give the people, I think you had a stat about winning streaks that the lack of winning streaks basically over the last year and a half.
Yeah, and the number 5 is to me starting to become a really defining number for this season. When we score 5 or more runs so far this year, before that, pretty disappointing loss on Saturday against the Red Sox, we had won 14 straight games when we scored 5 or more runs. We're 14-2 when we score 5 or more runs. Now, most teams have a record similar to that. But this Braves offense should be a team that should score that more than at the 25th best rate in baseball. That's what really struggles. But the stat that I brought up was that this team also cannot win 5 in a row. They have not won 5 games in a row since the start of 2024, since the beginning of April. I believe that's correct. I'll go back and make sure. But the crazy thing is, again, I know that we're not this 2023 team, but when we talk about the offense being not even at an historic level, but just at an elite level, but in 2023, this team won 5+ games on 7 different occurrences. And that's the whole point that I'm getting at by bringing it up. When it comes to, it's great to win 9 out of 11, and I hope that we do that again. But this team at some point, the longer and longer it goes playing 500 ball, the more and more important it's going to be that at some point over a 2-week stretch, they win once again 9 out of 11. Because when they did that in April, it made up for them losing 7 straight. What's going to define the playoff race for the National League moving forward is which team from now on is going to have that 10 out of 12, 11 out of 15 stretch, probably against quality competition. The Braves have got to get that done at some point, and it's just hard to have trust that they eventually will with where this offense is. You hope Ronald changes that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where you put your hope right now is that, Ronald's going to be up soon and that he changes the dynamic of the team and specifically the offense. But listen, and we've talked about this on the last couple of shows. It is almost impossible to go on a winning streak of any substantial amount when you're playing low-scoring 1-run games. And tonight wasn't a 1-run game. Technically, the Nationals put on a second run against Dylan Lee. But tonight was effectively a close, 1-run game. Obviously, it was a 2-run game, but you're just not going to win those. Those are basically coin flips. You're not going to win 7 coin flips in a row unless you just get on a crazy good stretch, a crazy, good fortune. I think the Marlins did that a couple of years ago, but it's not something you should really bank on. The way to get a long winning streak, to win 5 in a row, 6 in a row, 7 in a row, or 8 out of 10 is offense, is to beat teams by 3 or 4 runs, where variance is kind of taken out of the equation. When you play these 1-run games, these close games, literally any play of the game can change the outcome because the margin is so small. Well, when the margin's bigger, obviously those little, plays, those little bits of variance don't affect the outcome nearly as much. And so, it's an offensive problem to start with. And tonight was the same thing. Listen, the Braves need more out of Austin Riley. I know he's had a solid year. I think he's got a 115 WRC plus, which is solid. That's solid, but that's not what the Braves, that's not why the Braves didn't give Austin Riley $210 million for a 115 WRC plus. And, I know Austin the last couple of years, April and May are his worst months. And so I'm hoping as the count, Memorial Day is literally right around the corner. We're approaching, like Shawn just said, we're approaching the 1/3 point of the season. I'm hoping when June kicks in, we get summer months Austin Riley because the Braves need him. The Braves need him to be better than that. And, Acuña will help, of course, but it starts with the offense, in my opinion. I know Strider wasn't great tonight, but I'm not worried about the starting pitching. I am worried about the bullpen, but I'm also not worried about the bullpen because I think Alex is going to address that in the offseason, or I'm sorry, at the trade deadline. But the offense is what it is. I mean, Acuña's coming back and Profar is coming back, and that's it. That's all that's going to be the only changes. And so, and we don't know what Acuña is going to look like, and we don't know what Profar is going to look like, quite honestly. So the Braves need more from guys. They need more from Austin Riley. They need more from Ozzie Albies. They need more from Michael Harris. You know, those guys are still running OPSs in like the low 600s. You know, they need more from those guys. You know, Nick Allen, Alex Verdugo, you get what you get, you know. But Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris, Austin Riley, you know, Olsen has picked it up. You know, the catchers have been awesome. Ozuna's been good, but like the Braves need more out of Austin Riley, Michael Harris, and Ozzie Albies, and then hope that Acuña can do something big when he gets back. You're on mute, Shawn.
Forgive me. The other thing,
that mute button, you and that mute button are in
gets me every time.
A battle.
The other thing that I'll say is this, is that what truly does stand out about this offense, even compared towards the end of May, is that our power it has just been sapped as well. Currently in the month of May, this team is 23rd or worse in team slugging, team ISO, and home runs. They currently are 25th in home runs in the month of May in baseball. They have hit 15 home runs across, I believe, 17 games in May. Right now, they have a 379 slugging percentage. They're 26th in ISO. The only player right now that has a 450 or above slugging percentage in the month of May is Matt Olson. And that's really because he's starting to hit well here recently. So again, this offense, home runs, nobody expects for this team to be able to hit home runs like they did in 2023, but they've got to be able to hit home runs with how they're built, and they're perfectly capable of doing that. But unfortunately right now, Nick Allen is returning to who we expected Nick Allen to be. Alex Verdugo has fallen off completely. Eli White's starting to come back down to earth a bit, and Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris have not gotten going. That's more than half your lineup. And Ozuna and Riley also are struggling as well. So the power's got to show up at some point. One thing I will say is, as good as it is to get Ronald back, he will bring some power to the equation, but the power output for much of the lineup has to improve for this offense truly to be where we need it to be, again, to win at the level that we need to.
Yeah, the power stuff is weird. I don't get it. Like Ozzie has 5 homers this year. Ozzie's slugging percentages in like the 300s. I don't know what's happened there. You know, Riley's, if you look at Riley's slugging numbers the last 2 years, you know, from 21, 22, and 23, Riley had slugging percentages easily in the 500s, like 520, 530 slugging percentages. In the last 2 years, it's dropped down to like 440. And I don't know why. I don't have a good answer for that. And just the power overall on the team. Now, listen, not having Acuña matters. That dude can hit 40 home runs like that. I mean, he's just a monster. So, of course, you've traded out Ronald Acuña Jr. for Alex Verdugo, or, you know, Whit Merrifield or Ramon Laureano, or pick your guy. But yeah, the team-wide power output has been very low. And like you said, they're 23rd in May. They're 23rd in baseball in home runs. That's not good enough. This team is not built to score in a lot of other ways, quite honestly. They don't really, you know, when the team was put together, there was not a lot of emphasis put on speed or on base percentage. You know, those things weren't factored in a lot. What was factored in was power, hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And quite frankly, the Braves just haven't done it. Matt Olson has gotten hot, and the catchers have been hot, Baldwin and Murphy. But other than that, there hasn't been a lot of power. And you can honestly trace it all back to that. You know, I don't expect this team to hit 4 singles in a row. That's not how they're built. They're built to get a walk and somebody pop a 2-run homer and do that a couple times every night. And we just haven't had that. And I think, honestly, you can start there. The Braves need to get back to hitting home runs. And Acuña will help 100%, but they need some of their guys who they depended on over the last couple of years to look like they're themselves again. And, you know, I think Austin Riley is kind of at the forefront of that as we sit here today. That could change next week. It could be a different guy. But as we sit here today, I think it starts with Austin Riley. They need him back to the guy he was, and then hope that Acuña can fill in the rest.
Speaking of Acuña, we're going to have the latest on him, including some words directly from Alex Anthopoulos on when we might finally expect Ronald Acuña Jr. to be back in the majors.
I just want to say, before Arena Club, if you were trying to very actively buy, sell, trade, it was very complicated and used a lot of mail that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to do it, but I'm glad we have Arena Club now because it's a one-stop shop for everything card related.
It is. And right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or your first card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL. If you're a collector, you've got to check out Arena Club. Go get after it.
So, Stephen, Ronald Acuña Jr. obviously has looked outstanding in the Florida Complex lead. Last week, in Gwinnett now, I think for 3 or 4 games. Tonight, I'll let you give a little bit more detail tonight. I know that there's been some nasty weather that we've all been experiencing, but tonight the game was a little bit shorthanded due to some rain. But I bring all this up to say this. Alex Anthopoulos was asked about, Ronald Acuña Jr. potentially when the Braves return home on Friday. Could he make an appearance? Could that be when he returns, especially with the fact that the Braves are going to be facing another contender in the National League in San Diego? And Alex Anthopoulos basically said, listen, I'm not completely ruled it out, but I think it's very unlikely. And I'll personally say I applaud that answer from Alex Anthopoulos. The reason why is this. Ronald Acuña has looked spectacular. He's saying all the right things. I truly feel like he's in a much, much better position coming back this time around than he was in 2022. But the reason I applaud Alex Anthopoulos is because the Braves want to check every box. They want to make sure that Ronald Acuña Jr. once again is being put in the routine of the different things that he can do. Being productive on the base pass, playing a full 9 innings out in the outfield, being able to, travel on the road even, if he were to travel with Gwinnett. I think all of those things matter. Getting him fully back into the routine. Again, he can say he's fully competent, and I truly believe that he is, that he feels 100%. But feeling 100% and being back into the routine, I think are two different things. So even though it may not seem like it, the Braves taking their time, they have the time to do that. They should be doing that. I'm perfectly fine with them being cautious with when Ronald Acuña Jr. will eventually return.
Yeah, so Alex did a couple of interviews today. He did one with, I think, 690 The Fan, and then he also went on John Heyman and Joel Sherman's podcast and did like 20, 25, 30 minutes with them. And he made the point that usually when a position player is coming back from injury and he's doing his rehab starts, you're doing them so he gets his timing back at the plate. But that's not what Ronald's doing. Ronald's been hitting since the beginning of spring training. Like, he's been actively hitting, live pitching, batting practice. He's been hitting at all points. The thing that Ronald hasn't been doing is running around in the outfield and running the bases, because he just got cleared to run and cut a couple of weeks ago. And so Alex's point was, we're not so much looking at the timing, because if you watch his at-bats, he looks like he could play tomorrow. He's got a 1,700 OPS in AAA right now. Launching ball. He had a slider. There was a slider on the outside black of the plate that he hit 420 feet to left field. I don't know how he did it. Stuff that only Ronald could do. So, it's not about the bat. It's much more about getting his legs ready to go to play the outfield, because he's got to play the outfield. He can't. He'll DH maybe some, but how many nights are you going to take Ozuna out of the lineup? Not many. More likely is he's going to rest, more than he DHs, but he's got to play the outfield. And I do want to say this. I have very low expectations for Ronald as an outfielder in 2025. I have very high expectations as Ronald as a hitter, but as an outfielder, I'm guessing it's probably not going to look great. There's going to be some misplays. There's going to be some awkward plays. He's not going to win a Gold Glove this year. That's for certain. So I would go ahead and warn fans. It's probably going to look a little messy in the outfield, even when he gets back. And that's probably going to be the last part that goes. And let's be honest, but even before he had the injury, Ronald wasn't the greatest defensive outfielder in the world anyways. He's got a cannon for an arm, but he's never actually been a very natural, route runner in the outfield, getting jumps on balls, stuff like that. So my guess is it's probably going to look a little messy. But that's what they're waiting on. That's what Alex's point was, and probably why he's not going to come back on Friday. It didn't help that their game tonight got rained out in the 5th inning. He only got 2 at-bats tonight, only played 4 innings in the field. I think the goal tonight was him to play 9 innings and then the rain came and swept that away. So that probably even hammers it home more that he's not going to be back on Friday. And I understand you got to get his legs underneath him. He's got to play in the outfield for 9 innings. He's got to be able to come back in the next day, feel good, do it again. Come in the next day, feel good, do it again. So I get waiting. It's just tough when you see a guy take the at-bats that he takes and the offense being inconsistent the way it is. It's like, good Lord, I would love to have Ronald Acuña in this offense right now. But it's probably best to be a little more prudent at this point with your franchise superstar. So I get it. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider is the fact that the reason why they're doing this is because they've got to have him play the outfield.
Yeah.
You know, they can't afford to sit here and sit Marcelo Ozuna and let him kind of ease his way back in, play DH. They've got to be able, again, with Alex Verdugo struggling like he has for much of May, Eli White followed a bit off as well. You've got to be able, you're already going to have the other outfield spot as a weak source. He's got to be able to play the outfield. So I think that makes a ton of sense to be able to make sure that he's comfortable playing that outfield. If that's the obstacle he could overcome, that was probably the biggest obstacle for him to overcome last time. He overcomes it this time, then that's going to be the best path for him being the Ronald Acuña Jr. that we're all used to. So with the loss tonight, the simple truth is this. The Braves have to win this series. And you have to feel confident that with Smith-Shawver as well as Chris Sale on the mound the next 2 games, we should be in a good position to do that. But it's essential, especially with a huge series coming up over the weekend with San Diego coming back to Atlanta. We just saw Trevor Williams versus AJ Smith-Shawver the last time both pitchers was out. Smith-Shawver once again was excellent. Be interesting to see him facing the same lineup and one that's got some pretty good hitters with Washington, him facing the same lineup for the second straight time. What will happen? How will he adapt? How will those hitters adapt? But again, you have to feel confident. You just have to see this offense support him. It would be great if they could replicate what they did in the early innings from tomorrow night, but also get a few of the middle innings as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a real bummer to lose this series after coming in from Boston, playing so well. Winning a big series on the road. The Braves have, despite what they did in Boston, the Braves have not been a good road team this year. A lot of their damage they've done at home, and they've just kind of survived on the road. And obviously they're 0, and a lot of that is the 0-7 start. All 7 of those games were on the road, obviously. But, this Washington series is important because the schedule gets really tough after this. Like, they play San Diego, they play Philadelphia, they play Arizona, they play San Francisco. They've had this stretch of playing the Pirates and the Rockies and the Nationals. Even the Red Sox are kind of more of a 500 team than a great team. Well, that's going away. The schedule picks up at, the first half of June is tough. And then at the end of June, I think they get the Mets twice. And maybe not back-to-back series, but one series in between. So the June schedule is much tougher. And so it would stink to lose this series and then go into that rough stretch. Now the Braves could beat good teams, but it's not going to be quite as easy as it's been. And again, like we talked about, even with a kind of an easier schedule in May, the Braves are basically a 500 team in May. They're 1 game over 500 in the month of May. So I don't know. We'll see. It would stink to lose this series. Obviously, when you lose the first game, the odds of you losing the series goes up a lot. Smith-Shawver has been unbelievable this year. Chris Sale has looked awesome the last, 3 or 4 weeks or so. So I think they got a shot. The Nationals are not a good team. Quite frankly, they're not. The Braves should beat the Nationals, but they didn't really beat them last year. They just lost tonight. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I know what would help is 7 runs. That would help a lot. 7 or 8 runs scored both games. Give the pitcher some breathing room. That would help a lot. But with this offense, it's not even day to day. It's like inning to inning. You don't know the quality that you're going to get, and that's been part of the frustration this season.
Absolutely. The hit on Stevens' point, currently right now, the playoff teams in the National League are Los Angeles, Philadelphia and the Mets, I think, are tied now at the NL East. So one of them is the East, one of them is the wild card. But Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and then we'll say the Phillies, and then the Mets, the Padres, as well as the Giants in the wild card. Well, through the end of June, the Braves, after this series against the Nationals, they're going to have 11 series. They face, in 6 of those 11 series, teams that are currently in the playoff mix. And the teams that they play twice, in other words, we're going to play nearly 15 games against the Mets and the Phillies through the end of June. That basically is 1/3 of our games over the next 6 weeks. So this is crucial. I don't want to be too dramatic because at the end of it, we're still going to be only halfway through the season, but you can easily look back. I think that when they lost 7 in a row to start the season, but then won 9 out of 11, that kind of took, the impact of losing that 7 in a row away. This right here is the stretch that I really think defines the season. It may be hard to go on that, 9 out of 11 stretch like they did in April, but if you keep winning series, you're in a good spot. But you've got to have success now, and the only way that you're going to do it is consistently score runs or have every aspect of your team on the right path. So a big, huge opportunity for the Braves awaits them coming into late May and early June, but they've got to make the most of winning every game where they're expected to win, and that starts over the next 2 games.
Yeah, and listen, the old saying is, momentum is the next day's starting pitcher, and the Braves, AJ Smith-Shawver has been a revelation this year. Chris Sale has been awesome, so they got a chance. I think they play McGinn. I think it's Sale versus Mackenzie Gore on Thursday. So that'll be a fun game. It seems like every game Sale pitches now is against the other team's ace. So, you don't expect a lot of runs to be scored in that game, but the offense just stepping up and hitting a couple of homers. I mean, they did it a couple of times in Boston, but like the number of times the Braves have multiple homers in a game is like stunningly low. The number of times they do it with, more than one guy is really low, like weirdly low. So let's hit some long balls. Let's hit some homers like we used to, like we were built to. Take some pressure off the pitching staff. Hopefully Smith-Shawver and Chris Sale can keep it up, and they can get out of here with 2 more wins and get back above 500. Maybe even get like a little cushion so that we're not doing this every day. Above 500, 500, below 500, above 500. Let's maybe win 6 or 7 in a row and get this nonsense behind us and actually start trying to climb in the standings a little bit. But it starts with the offense.
Yeah, the easiest way to be able to score runs is to put the ball over the fence. And just to be completely honest with you, the Braves are going to come nowhere close to where we all hope they can get this season and beyond unless they start hitting homers once again. Ronald Acuña Jr. should do that, but it's got to take others stepping up as well. You can find Stephen Tolbert at B_Outliers on Twitter/X. My name is Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC on Twitter/X as well. Hammer Territory across all forms of social media, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Until next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.